Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
We are so excited to see Randy Swaim. He's here, and I love his outlook on life, on people, on just living life to the fullest. And you know what? You live each day. You got to be grateful, thankful for everything. And even when bad things happen, you're the type of guy that I want in my back corner to say, it's going to be okay. You got this. And you always build that confidence in people and your teams and all that you help all around the world. Obviously, he's an amazing coach, Marshall Goldsmith certified, and he's joining us today here live from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. How are you?
Woo, doing good, doing good. Glad to be here with you as always. And
Oh,
it's interesting what you just said because one small part of what you just said is going to be sort of a central theme of what I'm talking about today. So that's you have my compliments on that.
oh, well, yeah. AC pop broke. I heard an explosion. Anyway, being taken care of now, but you're right. You got to look at the positive. We're okay. We're healthy. We're alive.
Yes,
yeah,
that's true.
my kids were screaming, and I'm like, I'm working. I can't talk. What's going on? But always
And
a pleasure to have you.
and,
Yeah.
and, and at least they're learning about it so that in the future, in about 20 years, they'll be able to uh, understand it. So yeah, just
Oh,
yeah, it's you're right. It's a challenging thing for kids, particularly if it's their first time with it. So,
oh,
but
well,
anyway, you have my compliments on just what you're doing and how you're doing it and who you are. And I just I'll look forward to uh maybe the next time where you tell me, okay, yeah, it all got fixed. We're good.
yes. Thank you so much. Oh my God. How are you? What's happening? What are we going to discuss today?
Well, what I'm going to discuss today is a little bit of a key aspect here that I touched on toward the end of our last one, when I was talking about my ex and stuff like that. And I'll mention one thing on that. But what I'm going to be looking at doing is, and just mentioning to these folks, and I'll be quoting one thing that I, wrote out and everything in one of the videos. And but it's an aspect that when you're talking about people that are leading, there are things they've got to be aware of. Because if you have people that are nothing but just dysfunctional and narcissistic managers, and
Mm.
they're not really understanding true leadership, guess what? It can make bad things happen in their team, in their company, and what they're trying to do. And so I'm going to just kind of mention just a couple of aspects about that.
Oh, would love to hear. Thank you so much. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I tell you what, you may remember, and I think you'll remember this, that I think it was last week, kind of toward the end of the show and everything, I pointed out what I had been doing with my ex. My ex, the lady that I was married to I was her fifth marriage and stuff. And, but she, had four failed marriages before me, and I think she had just gotten a whole lot of kind of thing like that and everything. And there are things we could have done better, but we had a good marriage for the most part. But she left in 2010, and just because she was kind of going back to what she remembered with all those other ones and everything, and it was kind of amazing because just to make it real simple, I'm and I'm just going to give you this couple, this very few minute picture, but then I'll explain why I'm bringing that
Sure.
in terms of a leadership thing, and then I'll kind of mention this key aspect of it. But the bottom line is, um, on the day I knew she was moving out, I made a full commitment to myself and to the Lord that I serve, and I said I'm going to stay completely committed to her going forward. No two ways about it. And you know what? Still in my heart, I feel love for her, even though I think you realize this. She passed away about
Ah,
6 years ago. But the bottom line is, she thought I was just going to be going out and doing stupid things because that's what some of those ex, husbands did with her apparently in the past, I guess. But it blew her away when she found out that I had her grandkids and their father and mother actually move into my house with me. and I think that sort of blew her away in a positive way. And they lived with me for about 3 years, but then they had to be divorced because the mother was being abusive and stuff. But there was um, she was amazed by how I, you know, uh, you know, monetarily helped out the fact where the kids, the
Yeah.
two great grandkids, were going to be in a good situation, and they are, and they're turning into some amazing people right now, kind of
Oh,
thing. But the amazing thing about this too is that that happened about 3 years after they moved into me, but there was a time when, and this was back in about 19, it was about December of 19, no, December of 2018. And I found out that my ex had been trying to call get in touch with the government to try to get some help and some financial assistance and help and everything. And I looked at my pastor's wife and told her, I said, well, I'll tell you what. She said, what? I said, I'm going to send you money every month and I'm going to tell you how much to send her. And she was
wow.
like, wow, okay. And I sent her, and they sent checks. When she went and you know manually gave a check to my ex for about $300 a month. And when it got to December of 2019, it was a $400 check. And she was,
Ah,
and my ex looked back at her and said, "Well, I'll tell you what, maybe the church needs this more than I do." And my pastor's wife looked at her and said, "The church is not out one single penny. The church, you got to realize that every bit of this has been voluntarily donated to the church by one person and earmarked for you." And she said, my ex was like this. And she was like, what? Oh, oh wow. Wow.
uh,
Wow. And she had to get her attention back. And she looked at her and she said, who did that?
wow.
Who did that? And my pastor's wife looked at her and very calmly said, Randy did. And she was like, oh, wow. Oh, wow. And then, she basically stood up and as she was getting ready to move on to what she had to go do, she looked back and she said, I am so appreciative and I'm so amazed and stuff. But you know what? That was the last
Ah,
connection we ever had because 2 weeks later, it was
oh
in the
my
first
goodness.
first month of 2020, she passed away.
Mm.
And and I told my pastor's wife when she called me and told me about it, I said, you know what, I appreciate this and stuff. But the other part of it too is what, you know, um, the feeling that my ex got that those checks were coming in like that was was not anything dysfunctional or whatever. She was appreciative. But when she passed away, that was kind of the last thing she experienced and felt in her life.
Mm.
And you know what? Here's the thing when you talk about a leadership aspect of it. When you're
Wow.
talking about leading teams, and I will tell you that if if and you know this, and there's other people, some of the people that are listening have probably heard this too, but it's very true. There are people out there that are not leaders. They are narcissistic and dysfunctional managers. They're they're dysfunctional control freaks and things of that nature. And what I'm going to do is on my and you may have seen a few of these, but I've got these little short video clips on my excuse me, on my social media and everything. And there was one where it was talking about, it's all relating to leadership, but it also brings out aspects of neuroscience and awareness of the brain and what we need to do and everything. But here's the quote that they put right on the top of that because it was the intro to the concept that I brought out. And it said, if you're feeling your team, or excuse me, if you're telling your team to shut up and do what I tell you, you're missing out. This approach stifles innovation and can
Wow.
hinder your company's future growth and your team's potential. And what I
Wow.
wanted to kind of mention is that a lot of people, if they start doing what I did to my ex, a lot of people, their whole focus is on what do I get out of this? I'm going to make sure she just wants to come back and talk to me and all this kind of stuff. And that's what a lot of dysfunctional people do. That was not my intention here. My intention was I wanted her to sense and experience something that was different than what she had done, experienced most probably in the first part of her life and everything.
Yeah.
And I wanted her to kind of sense that. And the big thing that I kind of talk about when you're talking about leading your team and you're talking about, what you're really doing, this little quote was exactly right. If all you're doing is telling your people to just shut up and do what I tell you to do, you're missing out totally, and you're not letting them grow. And if you think about the neuroscience aspect of the mental processing that people have in their brains, you're shutting that aside, and you don't want that. You don't want that because guess what? They have to kind of be aware of it. And if you think about it, when you're talking about your team in a situation like that or whatever, guess what? Your team isn't processing because you have shut off their processing. And if you're doing that, you're dysfunctional and you're not doing it what's right. And to keep in mind that when you talk about when I kind of did that for that year with my ex, my goal was not to get her to come back to me. I mean, if she ever wanted to, I'd welcome it, kind of thing. But I wasn't trying to do it. At no time did I call her and try to tell her to come back and talk or anything like that. I basically just changed her feeling and her experience and her opinion. And if that caused her to call back, I'd welcome it.
Yeah.
But, it was very short before passing away and everything. But the bottom line is when you're talking
Oh.
about rapidly changing situations like this,
Yeah.
you got to realize that when you're talking to your team and you're walking with your team, a lot of people that are narcissistic, dictatorial managers in today's world have an insight where it's just my job to tell them what to do. Yeah, just shut up. You
Yeah,
just do
right?
what I tell you to do. And if you're doing that, you need to understand that there's two very bad
Okay.
dysfunctions to that. One is you are not being a leader. You are not really creating the radical success that can possibly
Yeah.
come out of this. And you're missing the boat on that. The other thing is, if you think about it, you got to realize that you're shutting your people off and you're causing them not to grow. You're causing them to sort of shut off their processing. And well, he just wants me to do this, kind of thing, or whatever, kind of thing. And that is not being a leader. And if you think about it, this is very aligned with the organizational maneuverability concept of mine, where let's face it, not every single thing that occurs in the journey is road academic. It may have factors that you didn't experience. And keep in mind, one or two of the people on your team may experience and see a certain factor that you had no attention of. And you know what? The big thing about it is when they bring it up, the last thing you want to do is just because a lot of the dictatorial managers just sit there and say, "Well, here, just do this, do this, do this,"
Yeah.
kind of thing, and that is not being a leader. That is not really reaching radical success. And so it is very key on this, and it was just a picture on that because, like I said, my whole reaction to my ex for that whole year of every month, sending her $300, and on the last Christmas it was $400 just to give her a little bit of money for Christmas, kind of thing.
Uh,
And but I was not trying to control her. I was not doing it to get what I wanted out of it or anything like that. No, what I was doing is trying to make her experience in her life
Oh,
a little different. And it sort of blew her away in her mind. And that was kind of a reaction when the preacher's wife told her that. But you know what? One of the things that as a leader and as a manager, you have to be aware of, and this is very true when you're talking about organizational maneuverability concepts,
yeah.
is there are some times when you may need to, tell your people something. Yeah. Now, if they come up with a certain situation and you don't know anything about it, or they don't know anything about it, you may have to just tell them what to do. But here's the thing, and this is what a lot of people don't realize is, and this is something that I've done positively so many times in my life. But when you do that, if all you do is tell them what to do and you're trying to make it look like you're the smart one and you're the one that knows all this and all this kind of stuff, maybe not, you know, uh, because one of the things that you can do is have a short chat with them afterwards and say, well, I'll tell you what, with this situation, what do you think is probably the vision to happen? Now,
Yeah.
in my mind, I probably have my own, and it
Mm-hmm.
may be something that I bring to them. But you know what? If I can get them thinking that a little bit, and I don't mean in a dictatorial way where I just get them to shut their brain off and come into what I think. Now, I don't mean that. I mean having them engage the processing a little bit to have a real sense of the possibility of it and everything. And when you ask the right questions, and the right questions are not just getting the answers that I want to get from myself, kind of thing, because you know what? There might be some times where there's some other factors involved. Who knows? But the bottom line is it's just something to think about, that when you're talking about um, truly leading a team in an unpredictable, rapidly changing environment, um, and and being able to identify the right solution out of it, the right answer. And like I said, when I sent those checks, but I didn't call her, I didn't try to call attention to myself for doing it or anything like that. My pastor told her, and she just was blown away in a positive way by it when she heard it and kind of thing. Um, but the bottom line is, so many people think that it's all about me. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. It's about what you're doing. It's about what you're bringing. Very often it's what you're bringing to your team to get their growth and their awareness and all of that. It's not just about you dictating. Now, if you're talking about a certain situation, and guess what? From my military background, ex-military members will listen to this and go, "Yep, yep," kind of thing. When you're talking about actual combat, yeah, there are times when the commander's got to just do that. Say, "Hey, do this," kind of thing. They got to, there's times when you got to do that, but most times in the civilian business world, it's not as necessary. And if all you're doing is trying to call attention to yourself and just get them to shut their brains off and surrender to me, if that's all you're trying,
Yeah.
you're missing the boat and you're not being a true leader. Very often, in fact, there's been several times in my journey where I, uh, instead of just telling people, I asked them wonderful questions. And as they thought about the questions and the answers, they came up with the great answers. And you know what? They came up with the answers that I would have come up with. And you know what? It's exactly the answer I would have said, but they came up with it. Now, um, would I say something like, well, that's the way I see it too? Awesome. Yeah. But you know what? They get a chance to feel a pat on the back
Yeah.
because of what they did and their success on it and everything. So it's just something to think about when you're talking about being a leader instead of just a dictatorial manager, being a real leader in your environment. And what do you do? And guess what? If there's if all you're doing is just dictating, and like I said, this is a real good quote that I read here. Uh, if you're just having them shut their brain off and just capitulate to you, you're not getting it done. But you know what? A lot of times when you interact with them, sometimes, and maybe just 30 seconds, a lot of times you interact with them in such a way that they kind of in their brains go, oh, yeah, wow, yeah, you know what? And they become better and more effective and more visionary in what you're doing and all. And so, if you think about it, it's not just an aspect of dictating to your team to say, "Hey, go do this, do this." No, it's about, are you growing your team? Is your team becoming better? Is it becoming more aligned? Is it becoming, um, uh, more visionary and all of that? And so, like I say, that image of my ex there, I just kind of put it out there because that's a little bit of an image of sort of what I'm talking about here. It wasn't about, trying to control her. It wasn't about, just calling attention to me or anything like that kind of thing. No, it was just to give a positive thing for her with where she was. And that was my whole thing. I never called her once on that year. If she called me, I would have talked to her. Um, but like I said, about 2 weeks after the last check is when she passed away, and that was the last experience she had in life. And if
Ah,
she began to realize that, wow, you know what, thank you, thank you, kind of thing. And so the thing about it is, when you're talking about leading your team in a
yeah.
challenging environment, it's not just about you dictating. It's not about you calling attention to yourself, patting yourself on the back. If that's your only focus, you're not being a leader. If you are focused on your team and growing your team, and you have some clarity on kind of what I read here, kind of thing, and all that, and like I said, that's all on a short video clip that's on my uh, Facebook and all that. But the
Ah,
bottom line is, when you're talking about leading your team, you just have to have an understanding of how you're really going to do that. And if all you're thinking about is yourself and manager and controlling and all that, you're not getting there. So I just throw that out. What I strongly recommend for everybody that listens is develop yourself so that you're being a true leader, not just a dictatorial manager. And how you're growing your team, and how your team is even becoming better and better and better, and in the journey together. And just something to think about. And like I said, the example of my ex there that I mentioned in the last one was what I show there, because that was a good little bit of a picture of what I was talking about, where you're not just trying to control. It wasn't about her getting calling me or anything. It was just about a whole different thing. I wanted to make a positive thing.
yeah. Oh, beautiful. Thank you. Ah,
So anyway, that's just kind of the central thing. But you know what? All of that is very true when you're talking about um, leading teams. And are you, when you look at people that are the head of your team or whatever, are they acting as a dictatorial manager, or are they truly a leader? You know what? If somebody is a true leader, and literally almost all of the Air Force commanders that I worked with during my Air Force career were leaders, not just control freak people. They were real leaders. And you know what? I would have done anything to work with them. And that's what you got to realize, is just how you really want your team to grow, become, and truly achieve way more than you ever thought. Guess what? One of the central aspects to get that to happen is, if you're not just being a dictatorial manager, but you're being that real leader. So just something to think about. It's a very key aspect.
Oh, thank you for that, Randy. Randy, love you. The past few shows, I mean, getting extra personal. I love this. Thank you so much.
Well, you know what? And I'll tell you what, Jill. I just so you know, I love you as a person, and I just appreciate you so much too as a friend, and I just love being away. I mean, I appreciate a number of the people there at the PBNN and stuff, but I totally being on the show with you. I totally appreciate that, and just our time together.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. You have a fantastic day. Looking forward to seeing you and talking with you more. Thanks again, Randy, for
Okay.
everything.
Oh,
And go
oh,
ahead.
oh, and just to let you know, just very quick
Oh,
here, it looks like I'm going to kind of get a confirmation on it. It looks like next Wednesday they may have me over at the airport for a little bit of sort of ongoing training and stuff. Probably maybe from 9 o'clock to
okay.
3 o'clock or something like that. So the bottom line is, I'll let the
The powers that
that
be.
yeah, I'll let Ashley know and stuff if it looks like that, and if we can't be on for that day, I'll look to see if there's another time when we can, or what we'll do is we'll be on for the week after that.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Sounds good, sweetheart. Enjoy the rest of your day and have a good one.
Okay, and I
Stay
hope you have,
cool. The
and
theme of my
yeah,
day.
that's right, that's
It's good.
right. And you
It's
know
all.
what? I hope you have a wonderful week, and I hope you have a
I
wonderful weekend, my friend.
I sure will. Thank you so much. You have a fantastic day, sweetie. Bye.
Bye bye. Take care.
Bye.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.